fairy tale wolf sheds his skin, gently drifting away, with a twinkle in his eye and a heart full of dreams. He waits for the Friday night glow, where the magic redeems. Oh, the wolf in the moonlight, he's found his true call, reading tales of wonder for one and for all. In a world of stars dancing, his spirit takes flight, with stories of beauty under the starlit night.
I like the songs I got. Admittedly, I can't speak. They are AI generated, sadly, because I can't afford to get someone to actually make one. Of course, I didn't pay for these either. But it is Friday, July 4th. I was going to dig out my videos of me. Oh, that was sad to see. It's like the little gold things down in the bottom that switched from followers to subscribers, and it just went down to 1. Okay, someone subscribed. When did that happen? This it says I have a subscriber. Huh. Oh well. Thank you, whoever subscribed. Because it's not telling me. But anyway, it is Friday, July 4th. Supposed to be the 249th birthday of the United States. But considering the current state of the country, I'm not sure that's... Oh, Wild Mom Jr. has entered chat. Quick keyboard ASMR. But it is Friday. And it's strange, I found out, according to Scottish lore, you're not supposed to talk about Friday. Because Fridays are the days that the fairies can roam free. Which I guess technically makes sense that I do fairy tales on Fridays. Yeah. It was a really short video over Scottish tradition. It's like, you don't talk about Friday because Friday is not really cursed, it's just the day that the fairies are allowed to. It's their day of the week. And there was just a list of things you're not supposed to do on Fridays, including saying Friday. Now, like, not sharpening knives. That was an interesting one. Because they think you're intending on using iron against them. Yay, Phosabot's still working. Yeah. dun, dun. Hades 2. I don't know if I've watched any of that yet. Of course, I've been driving myself crazy trying to take care of things lately that I don't even think about it half the time. Let's see. I recognize a few lurkers. I'm not going to say anything that they're here, but hi, lurkers. How you doing? And there's one lurker that I saw in there that I'm going to use the new stuff next month for my streaming anniversary, because it was really fun to play with. I'm going to try to do a gaming stream that night, so I can really test how well my computer can handle things. But since it is a Friday night fairy tale evening, let's get to the library. So, everyone, feel free to settle back, get comfortable. Though, if you hear any fireworks over my microphone, I shut my house up as close as I could. Let's see, I have to confirm when my actual anniversary is. Where's my document file popping up? Oh, there it is. It's in my window. My first stream on Twitch was August 10th, 2021. Like I said, I don't really have a whole lot planned. I'll probably just actually try to play games. Let me see if I can get Soulframe to work. If not, I'll be doing Baldur's Gate 3. But anyway, oh, there are already fun names to say in this one. Not only is it written in early 20th century English, but the names are in Persian. Not sure which region that is. But anyway, the first story for tonight, the story of the 7 Simons. Far, far away, beyond all sorts of countries, seas, and rivers, there stood a splendid city where lived King Archidech, who was as good as he was rich and handsome. His great army was made up of men ready to obey his slightest wish. He owned 40 times 40 cities, and in each city he had 10 palaces with silver doors, golden roofs, and crystal windows. His council consisted of the 12 wisest men in the country, whose long beards flowed down over their breasts, each of whom was as learned as an entire college. This council always told the king the exact truth. Now, the king had everything to make him happy, but he did not enjoy anything because he could not find a bride to his mind. One day, as he sat in his palace looking out at the sea, A great ship sailed into the harbor, and several merchants came on shore. Said the king to himself, "These people have traveled far and beheld many lands. I will ask them if they have seen any princess who is as clever and as handsome as I am." Egotistical much. So he ordered the merchants to be brought before him. When they did, he said, "You have traveled and visited many wonders. I wish to ask you a question and beg you to answer truthfully. Have you anywhere seen or heard of the daughter of an emperor, king, or a prince who is as clever and as handsome as I am, and who would be worthy to be my wife and the queen of my country?" The merchants considered for some time. At last the eldest of them said, "I've heard that across many seas in the island of Busan there is a mighty king whose daughter, Princess Helena, is so lovely that she can certainly not be plainer than your majesty, and so clever that the wisest graybeard cannot guess her riddles." "Is this island far off? Which is the way to it?" "It is not near," was the answer. "The journey would take 10 years, and we do not know the way. And even if we did, what use would that be? The princess is no bride for you." "How dare you say so?" cried the king angrily. "Your majesty must pardon us, but just think for a moment. Should you send an envoy to the island, he will take 10 years to get there, and 10 more to return. 20 years in all. Will not the princess have grown old in that time and have lost all her beauty?" The king reflected gravely. Then he thanked the merchants and gave them leave to trade in his country without paying any duties, and he dismissed them. After they were gone, the king remained deep in thought. He felt puzzled and anxious, and he decided to ride into the country to distract his mind, and sent for his huntsmen and falconers. The huntsmen blew their horns, the falconers took their hawks off their wrists, and off they all set across the country till they came to the green hedge. On the other side of the hedge stretched a great field of maize as far as the eye could reach, and yellow ears swayed to and fro in a gentle breeze, like a rippling sea of gold. The king drew rein and admired the field. "Upon my word," he said, "whoever dug and planted it must be a good workman. If all the fields in my kingdom were as well cared for as this, there would be more bread than my people could eat." And he wished to know to whom the field belonged. Off rushed his followers at once to do his bidding, and found a tidy, nice little farmhouse, in front of which sat 7 peasants, lunching on rye bread and drinking water. They wore red shirts bound with a gold braid, and were so much alike that one could hardly tell one from the other. The messengers asked, "Who owns this field of golden maize?" And the 7 brothers answered, "The field is ours." "And who are you?" "We're King Archided's laborers." These answers were repeated to the king, who ordered the brothers to be brought before him at once. On being asked who they were, the eldest said, bowing low, "We, King Archided, are your laborers, children of one father and mother. We all have the same name, for each of us is called Simon. Our father taught us to be true to our king, and till the ground and be kind to our neighbors. He also taught us a different trade which he thought might be useful to us, and he bade us not to neglect our Mother Earth, which would be sure to amply repay our bosom." The king was pleased with this honest peasant, and said, "You have done well, good people, in planting your field, and now you have a golden harvest. But I should like each of you to tell me what special trades your father taught you." "Oh, my trade, O king," said the first Simon, "is not an easy one. If you will give me some workmen and materials, I will build you a great white pillar that will reach far above the clouds." "Very good," replied the king. "And you, Simon the second, what is your trade?" "Mine, your majesty, needs no cleverness. When my brother has built the pillar, I can mount it, and from the top, far above the clouds, I can see what is happening in every country under the sun." "Good," said the king. "And Simon the third?" "My work is very simple, sire. You have many ships built by learned men, with all sorts of new and clever improvements. If you wish it, it will build you a quite simple boat. 1, 2, 3, and it's done. But my plain little homemade ship is not grand enough for a king. Where other ships take a year, mine makes a voyage in a day. Where they would require 10 years, mine will do the distance in a week." "Good," said the king. "And what has Simon the fourth learnt?" "My trade, O king, is really of no importance. Should my brother build you a ship and let me embark in it, if we should be pursued by an enemy, I can seize our boat by the prow and sink it to the bottom of the sea. When the enemy has sailed off, I can draw it back up to the top again." "That is very clever of you," answered the king. "And what does Simon the fifth do?" "My work, majesty, is mere smith's work. Order me to build a smithy, and I will make you a crossbow, but from which neither the eagle in the sky nor the wild beast in the forest is safe. The bolt hits whatever the eye sees." "That sounds very useful," said the king. "And now, Simon the sixth, tell me your trade." "Sire, it is so simple I am almost ashamed to mention it. If my brother hits any creature, I can catch it quicker than any dog can. If it falls in the water, I pick it up out of the greatest depths, and in the dark forest I can even find it at midnight." The king was much pleased with the trades and talk of the six brothers, and said, "Thank you, good people. Your father did well to teach you these things. Now follow me to town. I want to see what you can do. I need such people as you about me. When the harvest comes time, I will send you home with royal presents." The brothers bowed and said, "As the king wills." Suddenly the king remembered that he had not questioned the seventh Simon, so he turned to him and said, "Why are you silent? What is your handicraft?" The seventh Simon answered, "I have no handicraft, good king. I have learnt nothing. I could not manage it. Never did not know how to do anything. It is not what might properly be called a real trade. It is rather a sort of performance, but it is one which no one, not the king himself, must watch me doing, and I doubt whether this performance of mine will please your majesty." "Come, come," cried the king. "I will have no excuses. What is this trade?"
"First, sire, give me your royal word that you will not kill me when I have told you. Then you shall hear."
"So be it then. I give you my royal word."
Then the seventh smith stepped back a little, cleared his throat, and said, "My trade, King Archjudge, is of such a kind that the man who falls in your kingdom generally loses his life and has no hopes of pardon. There's only one thing I can do really well, and that is to steal, and to hide the smallest scrap of anything I have stolen. Not the deepest vault or even the lock or enchanted could prevent me from stealing anything out of it, if that is what I wish to have."
When the king heard this, he fell into a passion. "I will not pardon you, you rascal! I will shut you up in my deepest dungeon on bread and water till you have forgotten such a trade. Indeed, it would be better to have you put to death at once, and I have a good mind to do so."
"Don't kill me, O king! I am really not as bad as you think. Why, had I chosen, I could have robbed the royal treasury and have bribed your judges to let me off. and built a white marble palace with what was left. But though I know how to steal, I don't do it. You yourself asked me my trade. If you kill me, you will break your royal word.
Very well, said the king. I will not kill you. I pardon you. But from this hour you shall be shut up in a dark dungeon. Here, guards, away with him to the prison. But you 6 Simons follow me and be assured of a royal favor. So the 6 Simons followed the king. The 7th Simon was seized by the guards, who put him in chains and threw him in prison with only bread and water for food. The next day the king gave the 1st Simon carpenters, masons, smiths, and laborers, with great stores of iron, mortar, and the like, and Simon began to build. And he built his great white pillar far, far up into the clouds, as high as the nearest stars. But the other stars were still higher off. Then the 2nd Simon climbed up the pillar and saw and heard all that was going on through the whole world. When he came down, he had all sorts of wonderful things to tell. How one king was marching in battle against another and was likely to be the victor. How in another place great rejoicings were going on, while in a third people were dying of famine. In fact, there was not the smallest event going on over the earth that was not hidden from him. Next, the 3rd Simon began, stretching out his arms once, twice, thrice, and the wonder ship was ready. At a sign from the king it was launched, and floated proudly and safely like a bird on the waves. Instead of ropes, it had wires for rigging, and the musicians played on them with fiddle bows, and made lovely music. As the ship swam about, the 4th Simon seized the prow with a strong hand, and in a moment it was gone, sunk to the bottom of the sea. An hour passed, and then the ship floated again, drawn up by Simon's left hand, while in his right he brought a gigantic fish from the depths of the ocean for the royal table. Whilst this was going on, the 5th Simon had built his forge and hammered out his iron, and when the king returned from the harbor, the magic crossbow was made. His Majesty went out into an open field, looked up at the sky, and saw, far, far away, an eagle flying up towards the sun, and looking like a mere speck. Now, said the king, if I can shoot that bird, I will reward you. Simon only smiled. He lifted his crossbow, took aim, and fired. The eagle fell. As it was falling, the 6th Simon ran with a dish and caught the bird before it fell to earth and brought it to the king. Many thanks, my brave lads, said the king. I see that each of you is indeed the master of his trade. You shall be richly rewarded, but now rest and have your dinner. The 6 Simons bowed and went to dinner, but they had hardly begun before a messenger came to say to the king who wanted to see them. They obeyed at once and found him surrounded by all his court and men of state. Listen, my good fellows, cried the king as soon as he saw them. Hear what my wise counselors have thought of. As you, Simon II, can see the whole world from the top of the great pillar, I want you to climb up to see and to hear. For I am told that, far away across many seas, is the great kingdom of the island of Busan, and that the daughter of the king is the beautiful Princess Helena. Off ran the 2nd Simon and clambered quickly up the pillar. He gazed around and listened to all sides, and then slid down to report to the king. Sire, I have obeyed your orders, and far away I saw the island of Busan. The king is a mighty monarch, but full of pride, harsh and cruel. He sits on his throne and declares that no prince or king on earth is good enough for his lovely daughter, and that he will give her to none, and that if any king asks for her hands, he will declare war against him and destroy his kingdom. Has the kingdom of Busan a great army? Asked Archilege. In his country, far off. As far as I could judge, replied Simon, it would take you nearly 10 years in fair weather to sail there. But if the weather were stormy, we might say 12.
I saw the army being reviewed. It is not very large, 100,000 men at 100,000 knights. Besides these, he has a strong bodyguard and a good many crossbowmen. Altogether, you may say another 100,000, and there is a picked body of heroes who reserve themselves for great occasions, requiring particular courage. The king sat for some time, lost in thought. At last he said to the nobles and courtiers standing around, "I am determined to marry the Princess Helena, but how shall I do it?" The nobles, courtiers, and counselors said nothing, but tried to hide behind each other. And then the third Simon said, "Pardon me, your majesty, if I may offer advice. You wish to go to the island of Busan. What can be easier? In my ship you will get there in a week instead of 10 years. But ask your council to advise you what to do when you arrive. In one word, whether you will win the princess peacefully or by war." But the wise men were as silent as ever. The king frowned and was about to say something sharp when the court fool pushed his way to the front and said, "Oh, dear me, what are all you clever people puzzled about? The matter is quite clear, as it seems it will not take long to reach the island. Why not send the seventh Simon? He will steal the fair maiden fast enough, and then the king, her father, may consider how he is going to bring the army here. It will take him 10 years to do it, no less. What do you think of my plan?"
What do I think? Why, that your idea is capital. You shall be rewarded for it. Come, guards, hurry as fast as you can, and bring the seventh Simon before me.
Not many minutes later, Simon the Seventh stood before the king, who explained to him what he wished done, and also to steal for the benefit of his king and country was by no means a wrong thing, though it was very wrong to steal for his own advantage. The youngest Simon, who looked very pale and hungry, only nodded his head.
"Come," said the king, "tell me truly, do you think you could steal the Princess Helena?"
"Why should I not steal her, sire? The thing is easy enough. Let my brother's ship be laden with rich stuffs, brocades, Persian carpets, pearls, and jewels, and send me in the ship. Give me 4 noble brothers as companions, and keep the other 2 as hostages." When the king heard these words, his heart became filled with longing, and he ordered all to be done as Simon wished. Everyone ran about to do his bidding, and in no time the wonder ship was laden and ready to start. The 5 Simons took leave of the king, went on board, and had no sooner set sail than they were almost out of sight. The ship cut through the waters like a falcon through the air, and just a week after starting, sighted the island of Busan. The coast appeared to be strongly guarded, and from afar a watchman on a high tower called out, "Halt and anchor! Who are you? Where do you come from, and what do you want?" The 7th Simon answered from the ship, "We are peaceful people. We come from a country of the great king Archdedge, and we bring foreign wares, rich brocades, carpets, and costly jewels, which we wish to show your king and the princess. We desire to trade, sell, to buy, and exchange." The brothers launched a small boat, took some of their valuable goods with them, and rowed to shore and went up to the palace. The princess sat in a rose-red room, and while she saw the brothers coming, she called to her nurse and the other women, and told them to inquire who and what these people were, and what they wanted. The 7th Simon answered the nurse. "We come from a country of the wise and good King Archdedge," she said, "and we have brought all sorts of goods for sale. We trust the king of this country may condescend welcome us, and let his servants take care of our wares. If he considers him worthy to adorn his followers, we shall be content." This speech was repeated to the princess, who ordered the brothers to be brought to the Red Room at once. They bowed respectfully to her and displayed all splendid velvets and brocades, and opened cases of pearls and precious stones. Thank you for the hydrate. Such beautiful things had never been seen on the island, and the nurse and waiting women stood bewildered by their magnificence. They whispered together that they had never beheld anything like it. The princess, too, saw and wondered, and her eyes could not weary of looking at all the lovely things, or her fingers of stroking the rich soft stuffs, or of holding the sparkling jewels in the light. "Fairest of princesses," said Simon, "please be pleased to order your waiting maids to accept the silks and velvets, and let your women trim their head-dresses with the jewels. These are no special treasures, but permit me to say that they are nothing to the many-colored tapestries and gorgeous stones and pearls on our ship. We did not like to bring more with us, not denying that your royal taste might be, but if it is good to you to honor our ship with a visit, you might condescend to choose such things as were pleasing with the eyes." Oh, this polite speech pleased the princess very much. She went to the king and said, "Dear father, some merchants have arrived with the most splendid wares. Pray allow me to go to their ship and choose out what I like." The king thought and frowned hard and rubbed his ear. At last he gave consent and ordered out the royal yacht with 100 crossbows, 100 knights, and 1,000 soldiers to escort Princess Helena. Off sailed the yacht with the princess and her escort. The brother Simon came on board to conduct the princess to their ship. Led by the brothers and followed by her nurse and other women, she crossed the crystal plank from one vessel to another. The seventh Simon spread out his goods and had so many curious and interesting tales to tell about them that the princess forgot everything else in looking and listening, so that she did not know that the fourth Simon had seized the prow of the ship, and that all of a sudden it had vanished from sight and was racing along the depths of the sea. The crew of the royal yacht shouted aloud. The knights stood still with terror. The soldiers were struck dumb and hung their heads. There was nothing to be done but to sail back and tell the king of his loss.
How he wept and stormed. "Oh, light of my eyes," he sobbed. "I am indeed punished for my pride. I thought no one good enough to be your husband, and now you are lost to the depths of the sea and have left me alone. As for all you who saw this thing, away with you! Let them be put in irons and lock them up in the prison, whilst I think how I can best put them to death."
While the king of Busan was raging and lamenting in this fashion, Simon's ship was swimming like a fish under the sea, and when the island was well out of sight, he brought it up to the surface again. In that moment, the princess recollected herself. "Nurse," she said, "we've been gazing at these wonders only too long. I hope my father won't be vexed by our delay." She tore herself away and stepped on deck. Neither the yacht nor the island was in sight. Helena wrung her hands and beat her breast. Then she changed herself into a white swan and flew off. But the fifth Simon seized his bow and shot the swan. And the sixth Simon did not let it fall into the water, but caught it in the ship. And the swan turned into a silver fish, and Simon lost no time and caught the fish. When quick as a thought, the fish turned into a black mouse and ran about the ship. It darted towards a hole, but before it could reach it, Simon sprang upon it more swiftly than any cat. And then the little mouse turned once more into the beautiful Princess Helena. Early one morning, King Arthur's sat thoughtfully at his window, gazing out to the sea. His heart was sad, and he would neither eat nor drink. His thoughts were full of the Princess Helena, who was as lovely as a dream, though he hasn't really seen her. Is it the white gull he sees flying toward the shore, or is that the sail? No, no, it's no gull. It's a wonder ship flying with the billowing sails. Its ships wave, the fiddlers play, and the wire rigging. The anchors thrown out, and the crystal plank laid from the ship to the pier. The lovely Helena steps across the plank. She shines like the sun, and the stars of heaven seem to sparkle in her eyes. Up sprang King Archjudge in haste. "Hurry, hurry!" he cried. "Let us hasten to meet her. Let the bugle sound, let the joy bells be rung." And the whole court swarmed with courtiers and servants. Golden carpets were laid down with great gates thrown open to welcome the princess. King Archidej went out himself, and took her by the hand and led her into the royal apartments. "Madam," he said, "the fame of your beauty had reached me, but I did not dare to expect such loveliness. Still, I will not keep you here against your will. If you wish it, the wonder ship shall take you back to your father and your own country. But if you will consent to stay here, then reign over me and my country as our queen." What more is there to tell? It is not hard to guess that the princess listened to the king's wooing, and the betrothal took place with great pomp and rejoicings. The brothers Simon were sent again to the island of Busan with a letter to the king from his daughter to invite him to their wedding. And the wonder ship arrived on the island of Busan just as all the knights and soldiers who had escorted the princess were being led out for execution. Then the seventh Simon cried out from the ship, "Stop, stop! I bring you a letter from Princess Helena." The king of Busan read the letter over and over again and ordered the knights and soldiers to be set free. He entertained King Archidej's ambassadors hospitably and sent his blessings to his daughter, but he could not be brought to attend the wedding. When the wondrous ship got home, King Archidej and Princess Helena were enchanted with the news it brought. The king sent for the seven Simons. "1,000 thanks to you, my brave fellows," he cried. "Take what gold and silver and precious stones you will out of my treasury. Tell me if there is anything else you wish for, and I will give it to you, my good friends. Do you wish to be made nobles, or to govern towns? Only speak it." The eldest Simon bowed and said, "We are just plain folk, your majesty, and understand simple things best. What figures we should be cut out as nobles or governors? No, we do not desire gold. We have our fields which give us food, and as much money as we need. If you wish to reward us, then grant that our land may be free of taxes, and your thief by trade, and your goodness pardon the seventh Simon. He is not the first who has been a thief by trade, and will certainly not be the last." "So be it," said the king. "Your land shall be free of all taxes, and Simon the seventh is pardoned." Then the king gave each brother a goblet of wine and invited them to the wedding feast. Oh, and what a feast it was! When in doubt, hire a thief. Okay. I should be able to get one more story before we have to go to ads. So, our second story for this fabulous Friday night of fairy tales: The Language of Beasts. Once upon a time, a man had a shepherd who served him many years faithfully and honestly. One day, whilst herding his flock, the shepherd heard a hissing sound coming out of the forest nearby, which he could not account for. So he went into the wood in the direction of the noise to try to discover the cause. When he approached the place, he found that the dry grass and leaves were on fire, and a tree surrounded by flames. A snake was coiled, hissing with terror. The shepherd stood, wondering how the poor snake could escape,
for the wind was blowing the flames that way, and soon the tree would be burning like all the rest. Suddenly the snake cried, "Oh, shepherd, for the love of heaven, save me from this fire!" Then the shepherd reached out his staff over the flames, and the snake wound itself around the staff and up to his hand. From his hand it crept up his arm, and twined itself about his neck. The shepherd trembled with fright, expecting every instant to be stung to death, and said, "Oh, what an unlucky man I am, that I rescued you only to be destroyed myself." But the snake answered, "Have no fear. Only carry me home to my father, who is a king of snakes." The shepherd, however, was much too frightened to listen, and said that he could not go away and leave his flock alone. But the snake said, "You need not be afraid to leave your flock. No evil shall befall them, but make all haste if you can." So he set off through the wood carrying the snake, and after a time he came to a great gateway made entirely of snakes intertwined one with another. The shepherd stood still with surprise, but the snake round his neck whistled, and immediately all the arch unwound itself. "When we come to my father's house," said his own snake to him, "he will reward you with anything you like to ask. Silver, gold, and jewels, so whatever on earth is most precious. But take none of these things. Ask rather to understand the language of beasts. He will refuse you a long time, but in the end he will grant it to you." Soon after that they arrived at the house of the king of snakes, who burst into tears of joy at the sight of his daughter, who he had given up for dead. "Where have you been all this time?" he asked, directly as he could speak, and she told him that she had been caught in the forest fire, and had been rescued from the flames by the shepherd. The king of snakes, then turning to the shepherd, said to him, "What reward will you choose for saving my child?" "Make me to know the language of beasts," answered the shepherd. "That is all I desire." The king replied, "Such knowledge would be of no benefit to you, for if I granted it to you and you told anyone of it, you would immediately die. Ask me rather for something else you would like to possess, and it shall be yours." But the shepherd answered him, "Sir, if you wish to reward me for saving your daughter, grant me, I pray you, to know the language of beasts. I desire nothing else." And he turned as if to depart. Then the king called him back, saying, "If nothing else will satisfy you, open your mouth." The man obeyed, and the king spat at it, and said, "Now spit into my mouth." The shepherd did as he was told. Then the king of snakes spat again into the shepherd's mouth. When they had spat into each other's mouth 3 times, the king said, "Now you know the language of beasts. Go in peace, but if you value your life, beware lest you tell anyone of it, else you'll be immediately dead." So the shepherd set out for home, and on his way through the wood he heard and understood all that was said by the birds, and by every living creature. When he got back to his sheep, he found the flock grazing peacefully, and as he was very tired, he laid himself down by them to rest a little. Hardly had he done so when 2 ravens flew down from them perched in a tree nearby, and began to talk to each other in their own language. "If that shepherd only knew that there was a vault full of gold and silver beneath where that lamb is lying, what do you think he would do?" When the shepherd heard these words, he went straight to his master and told him. And the master took out a wagon and broke open the door to the vault and carried off all the treasure. But instead of keeping it for himself, the master, who was an honorable man, gave it all to the shepherd, saying, "Take it, it is yours. The gods have given it to you." So the shepherd took the treasure and built himself a house. He married a wife, and they lived in great peace and happiness. And he was acknowledged to be the richest man, not only of his native village, but of all the countryside. He had flocks of sheep and cattle and horses without end, as well as beautiful clothes and jewels. One day, just before Christmas, he said to his wife, "Prepare everything for a great feast. Tomorrow we will make things with us to no farm that shepherds may make merry." His wife obeyed, and all was prepared as he desired. The next day they both went to the farm, and in the evening the master said to his shepherds, "Come now, all of you, eat, drink, and make merry. I will watch the flocks myself tonight in your stead." Then he went out to spend the night with the flocks. When midnight struck, the wolves howled, and the dogs barked, and the wolves spoke in their own language, saying, "Shall we come in and wreak havoc, or you too shall eat flesh?" And the dogs answered in their tongue, "Oh, come on, and for once we shall have enough to eat." Now the dogs, there were no one. Now the dogs, there was one so old that he had only 2 teeth left in his head, and he spoke to the wolves, saying, "So long as I have 2 teeth in my head, I will let no harm be done to my master." All this the master heard and understood, and as soon as the morning dawned, he ordered all the dogs to be killed, except the old dog. The farm servants wondered at this order, but exclaimed, "But surely, sir, that would be a pity." The master answered, "Do as I bid you, and make ready to return home with my wife." And they mounted the horses, and her steed being a mare. They went on their way, and it happened that the husband rode on ahead, while the wife was a little way behind. The husband's horse, seeing this, neighed, and said to the mare, "Come along and make haste. Why are you so slow?" And the mare answered, "It's very easy for you. You only have a master who is a thin man, but I carry my mistress, who is so fat that she weighs as much as 3. When the husband heard that, he looked back and laughed, which his wife perceiving, she urged on the mare till she caught up with her husband, and asked him why he was laughing. "For nothing at all," he answered, "just because it came into my head." She would not be satisfied with this answer, and urged him more and more to tell her why he had laughed. But he controlled himself, and said, "Let me be, wife, what ails you? I do not know myself why I laughed." But the more he put her off, the more she tormented him to tell her the cause of his laughter. At length he said to her, "Know then that if I tell you, I shall immediately and surely die." But even this did not quiet her. She only besought him more to tell her. Meanwhile, they had reached home, and before getting down from the horse, a man called for a coffin to be bought. And when it was there, he placed it in front of the house, and said to his wife, "See, I will lay myself down in this coffin, and then tell you why I laughed, and as soon as I have told you, I will surely die." So he lay down in the coffin, and while he took a last look around him, the old dog came from the farm and sat down by him and whined. When he saw his master this way, he called to his wife, "Bring a piece of bread to give to the dog." His wife brought some bread and threw it to the dog, but he would not look at it. And the farm cock came and pecked at the head, but the dog said to it, "Rich glutton, you can eat like that when you can see your master is dying." The cock said, "Let him die. He is stupid. I have 100 wives, which I call together when I find a grain of corn. As soon as they are all there, I swallow it myself. Should one of them dare to be angry, I should give her a lesson with my beak. He has only 1 wife, and he cannot keep her in order." As soon as the man understood this, he got up out of the coffin, seized his stick, and called his wife into the room, saying, "Come, and I will tell you what you want to know." And then he began to beat her with the stick, saying each blowing, "It is that, wife, it is that." And this is the way he taught her never again to ask why he laughed. That is morbid. I could have had a funny answer. Like, I was laughing because the horses complained about you being fat, and she would have probably killed him. Okay, see how long that story is. It is 9 pages. So I would not get that done before the ads. It's only 5 minutes. So, I will see everyone in a short while. I was not expecting that. I did forget I had that sound. Okay, we're back. Yay! I said 3-minute break. Not too bad, was it? Folk Tales of the Magyars. I have to figure out what that is. Yes. Swing the tail. So, our next fabulous fairy tale for this Friday night. And I'm hearing fireworks through my headsets. So I'm sure you might hear it too eventually. But our next story is The Boy Who Could Keep a Secret. Once upon a time, there lived a poor widow who had one little boy. At first sight, you would not have thought that he was. Okay. Well, if you're hearing him, it's fine. I mean, I just shut up my house and turn on the air conditioner so I would just be cool, but I'm hearing him through my headset, so it's. I don't know if it's showing up on the microphone or not. But I got noise levels on the mic, so maybe they won't show up too much. No, lawnmower does. I had to stop recording one day because the lawn was being mowed. Anyway. Okay. The Boy Who Could Keep a Secret. Once upon a time there lived a poor widow who had one little boy. At first sight, you would not have thought that he was different from 1,000 other little boys. But then you notice that by his side hung a scabbard of a sword, and as the boy grew bigger, the scabbard grew bigger too. The sword that belonged to the scabbard was found by the little boy sticking out of the ground in the garden, and every day he pulled it up to see if it would go into the scabbard. But though it was plainly becoming longer and longer, it was some time before the two would fit. However, there came a day when at last it slipped in quite easily. The child was so delighted that he could hardly believe his eyes, and so he tried it 7 times, and each time it slipped a little bit more easily than before. But pleased though the boy was, he determined not to tell anybody about it, particularly not his mother, who never could keep anything from her neighbors. Still, in spite of his resolutions, he could not hide altogether that something had happened, and when he went to breakfast, his mother asked him what was the matter. "Oh, Mother, I had such a nice dream last night, but I can't tell it to anyone." "You can tell it to me," she said. "It must have been a nice dream, or you wouldn't look so happy." "No, Mother, I can't tell it to anybody," returned the boy, "till it comes true." "I want to know what it is. I know I will," she cried. "I will beat you till you tell me." It was of no use. Neither words nor blows could get the secret out of the boy. And when her arm was quite tired, and she had to leave off, the child, sore and aching, ran into the garden and knelt beside the little sword. It was working around and around in its hole all by itself, and if anybody except the boy had tried to catch hold of it, he would have been badly cut. But the moment he stretched out his hand, it stopped and slid quietly into the scabbard. For a long time the child sat sobbing, and the noise was heard by the king as he was driving by. "Go and see who it is that's crying so," he said to his servants, and the man went. In a few minutes he returned, saying, "Your Majesty, it is a little boy who is kneeling there sobbing and crying because his mother had beaten him." "Bring him to me at once," commanded the monarch, "and tell him that it is a king who sends for him, and that he has never cried in all his life and cannot bear anyone else to do so." On receiving this message, the boy dried his tears and went with the servant to the royal carriage. Will you be my son? Asked the king.
Yes, if my mother will let me,
Answered the boy. And the king bade the servant to go back to the mother and say that if she would give her the boy to him, she would live in the palace and marry the prettiest daughter as soon as he was a man. Hmm. The widow's anger now turned into joy, and she came running to the splendid coach and kissed the king's hand.
I hope you will be more obedient to his majesty than you were to me,
she said, and the boy shrank away, half frightened. But when she had gone back to her cottage, he asked the king if he might fetch something that he had left in the garden, and when he was given permission, he pulled up his little sword and slid it into the scabbard. Then he climbed into the coach and was driven away. After they had gone some distance, the king said, "Why were you crying so bitterly in the garden just now?"
because my mother had been beating me,
replied the boy. "And what did she do that for?" asked the king.
because I would not tell her my dream.
"And why wouldn't you tell it to her?"
Because I will never tell it to anyone till it comes true,
answered the boy. "And you won't tell it to me either?" asked the king in surprise.
No, not even to you, your majesty,
replied he. "Oh, I'm sure you will when we get home," said the king, smiling, and he talked to him about other things till they came to the palace. "I have brought you such a nice present," he said to his daughters, and as the boy was very pretty, they were delighted to have him and gave him all their best toys. "You must not spoil him," observed the king. One day, when he had been watching them playing together, he had a secret he won't tell anyone.
He will tell me,
answered the oldest princess, but the boy only shook his head.
He will tell me,
said the second girl.
Not I,
replied the boy.
He will tell me,
cried the youngest, who was the prettiest too.
I will tell nobody till it comes true, said the boy,
and he has said before,
and I will beat anybody who asks me.
The king was very sorry when he heard this, for he loved the boy dearly, but he thought it would never do to keep anyone near him when they would do as he bid. So he commanded his servants to take him away and not let him enter the palace again until he had come to his right senses. The sword clanged loudly as the boy was led away, but the child said nothing, though he was very unhappy at being treated so badly when he had done nothing. However, the servants were very kind to him, and their children brought him fruit and all sorts of nice things, and he soon grew merry again, and lived among them for many years, until his 17th birthday. Meanwhile, the two eldest princesses had become women, and had married to powerful kings who ruled over great countries across the sea. The youngest one was old enough to be married too, but she was very particular, and turned up her nose at all the young princes who had sought her hand. One day she was sitting in the palace, feeling rather dull and lonely, and suddenly she began to wonder what the servants were doing, and whether it was not more amusing down in their quarters. The king was at his council, and the queen was ill in bed, so there was no one to stop the princess. So she hastily ran to the gardens to the houses where the servants lived. Outside she noticed a youth who was handsomer than any prince she had ever seen. In a moment she knew him to be the little boy whom she had played with once.
Tell me your secret, and I will marry you, she said to him.
But the boy only gave her the beating he had promised her long ago, and when she asked him the same question, the girl was very angry, besides being hurt, and ran home to complain to her father. "If he had 1,000 souls, I would kill them all," swore the king. That very day the gallows was built outside the town, and all the people crowded round to see the execution of the young man who had dared to beat the king's daughter. The prisoner, with his hands tied behind his back, was brought out by the hangman, and amidst dead silence his sentence was being read by the judge, when suddenly the sword clanked against his side. Instantly a great noise was heard, and a golden coach rumbled over the stones, with a white flag waving out the window. It stopped beneath the gallows, and from it stepped the king of the Magyars, who begged that the life of the boy be spared. "Sir, he has beaten my daughter, who only asked him to tell her his secret. I cannot pardon that," answered the princess's father. Give him to me. I will be sure that he will tell me the secret. And if not, I have a daughter who is like the morning star, and he is sure to tell it to her. The sword clanked for a third time, and the king said angrily, Well, if you want him so much, you can have him, only never let me see his face again. And he made a sign to the hangman. The bandage was removed from the young man's eyes, and the cords from his wrists, and he took his seat in the golden coach beside the king of Magyars. And the coachman whipped up the horses, and they set out for Buda. The king talked very pleasantly for a few miles, and when he thought of his new companion was quite at ease with him, he asked him what was the secret that had brought him such trouble. That I cannot tell you, answered the youth, until it comes true. You will tell my daughter, said the king, smiling. I will tell nobody, replied the youth, and as he spoke the sword clanked loudly. The king said no more, but trusted to his daughter's beauty to get the secret from her. The journey to Buda was long, and it was several days before they arrived there. The beautiful princess happened to be picking roses in the garden when her father's coach drove up. Oh, what a handsome youth! Have you brought him from fairyland? Cried she, when they all stood up on the marble steps in front of the castle. I have brought him from the gallows, answered the king, rather vexed at his daughter's words, since never before had she consented to speak to any man. I don't care where you brought him from, said the spoiled girl. I will marry him and nobody else, and we will live together till we die. You will tell another tale, replied the king, when you ask him what his secret is. After all, he is no better than a servant. That is nothing to me, said the princess, for I love him. He will tell his secret to me, and will find a place in the middle of my heart. The king shook his head and gave orders that the lad was to be lodged in the summer house. One day, about a week later, the princess put on her finest dress and went to pay him a visit. She looked so beautiful that at the sight of her the book dropped from his hand, and he stood up speechless. Tell me, she said coaxingly, what is this wonderful secret? Just whisper it in my ear, and I will give you a kiss. My angel, he answered, be wise and ask no questions. If you wish to get back safely to your father's palace, I have kept my secret all these years and do not mean to tell it now. However, the girl would not listen, and she went on pressing him, till at last he slapped her face so hard that her nose bled. She shrieked with pain and rage and ran screaming back to the palace, where her father was waiting to hear if she'd succeeded. I will starve you to death, you son of a dragon, he cried out, and then he saw her dress streaming with blood, and he ordered all the masons and bricklayers in the town to come before him. Build me a tower as fast as you can, he said, and see that there is no room for a stool or a small table for nothing else. The men set to work, and in 2 hours the tower was built, and they proceeded to the palace to inform the king that his commands were fulfilled. On the way they met the princess, who began to talk to one of the masons, and when the rest were out hearing, she asked if he could manage to make a hole in the tower, which nobody could use, large enough for a bottle of wine and to pass some food through. To be sure I can, said the mason, turning back. In a few minutes the hole was bored. At sunset, a large crowd assembled to watch the youth being led into the tower. After his misdeeds had been reclaimed, he was solemnly walled up. But every morning the princess passed him food through the hole, and every third day the king sent his secretary to climb up a ladder to look down through the little window to see if he was dead. But the secretary always brought back the report that he was fat and rosy. There's some magic about this, said the king. This state of affairs lasted for some time, till one day the messengers arrived from the sultan bearing a letter for the king, and also 3 canes. My masters bid me to say, said the messenger, bowing low, that if you cannot tell him what these 3 canes grows nearest the root, which in the middle and which at the top, he will declare war against you.
The king was very much frightened when he heard this, and though he took the canes and examined them closely, he could see no difference between them. He looked so sad that his daughter noticed it and inquired the reason. "Alas, my daughter," he answered, "how can I help being sad? The Sultan has sent me 3 canes and says that if I cannot tell which of them grows near the top, which in the middle, and which at the root, he will make war upon me, and you know that his army is far greater than mine." "Oh, do not despair, dear father," she said. "We shall be sure to find out the answer." And she ran away to the tower and told the young man all that had occurred. "Go to bed as usual," he replied, "and when you wake, tell your father that you have dreamed that the canes must be placed in warm water. After a little while, one will sink to the bottom. That is the one that grows nearest the root. The one that sinks nor comes to the top is the one that cuts from the middle. The one that floats is from the top." The next morning, the princess told her father of her dream, and by her advice he cut the notches in each of the canes and took them out of the water, so that he might make no mistake when he handed them back to the messenger. The Sultan could not imagine how he had found out, but he did not declare war. The following year, the Sultan again wanted to pick a quarrel with the King of Magyars, so he sent another messenger to him with 3 fowls, begging him to say which of the animals was born in the morning, which at noon, and which in the evening. If the answer was not ready in 3 days, war would be declared at once. The king's heart sank when he read the letter. He could not expect his daughter to be lucky enough to dream rightly a second time, and as a plague had been raging through the country and had carried off many of his soldiers, the army was even weaker than before. At this thought his face became so gloomy that his daughter noticed it and inquired what was the matter. "I have another letter from the Sultan," replied the king, "and he says that if I cannot tell him which of the 3 foals was born in the morning, which at noon, and which in the evening, he will declare war once more." "Oh, don't be cast down," she said. "Something is sure to happen." And she ran down to the tower to consult the youth. "Go home, idol of my heart, and when night comes, pretend to scream out in your sleep so that your father hears you. Then tell him that you have dreamt that he has been carried off by the Turks, because he knew not the answer about the foals. And when the lad whom he had shut up in the tower ran up and told them which was the foal in the morning, which at noon, and which in the evening." The princess did exactly as the youth had bidden her, and no sooner had she spoken than the king ordered the tower to be pulled down and the prisoner brought before him. Hopefully not in that order. "I did not think that you would have lived so long without food," said he, "and as you have had plenty of time to repent your wicked conduct, I will grant you a pardon, on the condition that you help me with some sore strait. Read this letter from the Sultan. You will see that if I fail to answer this question about the foals, a dreadful war will be the result." The youth took the letter and read through it. "Yes, I can help you," replied he. "But first you must bring me 3 troughs, all exactly alike. Into one you must put oats, into another wheat, and in the third barley. The foal which eats the oats is that which was foaled in the morning. The foal which eats the wheat is that which was foaled at noon. The foal which eats the barley is that which was foaled at night." The king followed the youth's directions, and, marking the foals, sent them back to Turkey, and there was no war that year. Now the Sultan was very angry that both his plots to get possession of Hungary had been such total failures, and he sent for his aunt, who was a witch, to consult her as to what to do next. Buda is in Hungary, it's Budapest, in case you don't know. It's like same town, across the river, kind of like St. Louis. "It is not the king who answered your questions," observed the aunt when he had told his story. "He is far too stupid to have done that. The person who has found out the puzzle is the son of a poor woman, who, if he lives, will become king of Hungary. Therefore, if you want the crown yourself, you must get him here and kill him." After the conversation, another letter was written to the court of Hungary, saying that if the youth, now in the palace, was not sent to Turkey within 3 days, the large army would cross the border. The king's heart was sorrowful as he read, for he was grateful for the lad who could help him last. But the boy only laughed, and bade the king fear nothing, but to search the town instantly for 2 youths just like each other, and he would paint himself a mask that was just like them, and the sword at his side clinked loudly. After a long search, twin brothers were found, so exactly resembling each other that their own mother could not tell the difference. The youth painted a mask that was precisely a copy of him, and when he had put it on, no one was to have known one boy from the other. They set out at once for the Sultan's palace, and when they reached it, they were taken straight to his presence. He made a sign for them to come near, and they all bowed in low greeting. He asked them about their journey. They answered all his questions all together, and in the same words. If one sat down to supper, the other sat down at the same instant. When one got up, the others got up too. If there had only been one body between them. The Sultan could not detect any difference between them, and he told his aunt that he could not be so cruel as to kill 3.
Well, you will see a difference tomorrow, replied the witch, for one will have a cut on his sleeve. That is a youth you must kill.
In 1 hour before midnight, when witches are invisible, she glided into the room where the 3 lads were sleeping in the same bed. She took out a pair of scissors and cut a small piece of the boy's coat sleeve, which was hanging on the wall, and then crept silently from the room. But in the morning the youth saw the slit, and he marked the sleeves of his 2 companions in the same way, and all 3 went down to breakfast with the Sultan. The old witch was standing in the window and pretended not to see them, but all witches have eyes in the back of their heads, and she knew at once that not one sleeve but 3 were cut, and they were all as alike as before. After breakfast, the Sultan, who was getting tired of the whole affair, wanted to be alone to invent some other plan, told them they might return home. So, bowing low with one accord, they went. The princess welcomed the boy back joyfully, but the poor youth was not allowed to rest in peace. For one day fresh, a letter returned from the Sultan, saying that he had discovered the young man was a very dangerous person, and that he must be sent to Turkey at once, and alone. The girl burst into tears when the boy told her what was in the letter which her father had bade her carry him. "Do not weep, love of my heart," said the boy. "All will be well. I will start at sunrise tomorrow." So the next morning at sunrise, the youth set forth, and in a few days he reached the Sultan's palace. The old witch was waiting for him at the gate, and whispered as he passed,
"This is the last time you will ever enter it."
But the sword clanked, and the lad did not even look at her. As he crossed the threshold, 15 armed Turks barred his way, with the Sultan at their head. Instantly the sword darted forth and cut off the heads of everyone but the Sultan, then went quickly back into the scabbard. The witch, who was looking on, saw that as long as the youth had possession of the sword, all her schemes would be in vain, and tried to steal the sword in the night, but it only jumped out of his scabbard and sliced off her nose, which was of iron. And in the morning, when the Sultan brought a great army to capture the lad and deprive him of his sword, they were all cut to pieces, while he remained without a scratch. Meanwhile, the princess was in despair as the days slipped by and the young man did not return, and she never rested until her father had led some troops against the Sultan. She rode proudly before them, dressed in uniform, but they had not left the town more than a mile behind them when they met the lad and his sword. When he told them what had been done, they shouted for joy and carried him back in triumph to the palace, and the king declared that the youth had shown himself worthy to become his son-in-law, and should marry the princess and succeed to the throne at once, as he himself was getting old, and the cares of government were too much for him. But the young man said he must first go and see his mother, and the king sent him in state with a troop of soldiers as a bodyguard.
The old woman was quite frightened at seeing such an array draw up before her little house, and still more surprised when a handsome young man, whom she did not know, dismounted and kissed her hand, saying, "Now, dear mother, you shall hear my secret at last. I dreamed that I should become the king of Hungary, and my dream has come true. When I was a child, you begged me to tell you. I had to keep silence, or the Magyar king would have killed me. And if you had not beaten me, nothing would have happened as it has happened, and I should not now be the king of Hungary." Beat your kids, let them become royalty. Oh, what's the next one? The next one is 7 pages. Shouldn't be too bad. Yay! I mean, beating your kids because they keep a secret about a dream. At least the kid kept to his guns. I mean, no one needed to know his dream. And if he had told anyone, it wouldn't have happened, so. Anyway, our next story for the night. I'm still hearing fireworks, which are supposed to be illegal inside the city, except where the city is holding, which makes no sense. The Prince and the Dragon. Once upon a time, there lived an emperor who had 3 sons. They were all fine young men and fond of hunting, and scarcely a day passed without one or other of them going out to look for game. One morning, the eldest of the 3 princes mounted his horse and set out for a neighboring forest, where wild animals of all sorts were to be found. He had not long left the castle when a hare sprang out of a thicket and dashed across the road in front. The young man gave chase at once and pursued it over hill and dale, till at last the hare took refuge in a mill which was standing by the side of a river. The prince followed and entered the mill, but stopped in terror by the door, for instead of a hare, before him stood a dragon, breathing fire and flame. At this fearful sight, the prince turned to fly, but a fiery tongue coiled around his waist and drew him into the dragon's mouth, and he was seen no more. A week passed away, and when the prince never came back, everyone in the town began to grow uneasy. At last his brother told the emperor that he likewise was like to go out to hunt, and that perhaps he could find some clue to his brother's disappearance. But hardly had the castle gates closed on the prince than a hare sprang out from the bushes as before, and led the huntsmen up hill and down dale till they reached the mill. Into the mill flew the hare, with the prince at its heels, when lo, instead of the hare, there stood a dragon breathing fire and flame, and out shot a fiery tongue which coiled around the prince's waist and lifted him straight into the dragon's mouth, and he was seen no more. Days went by, and the emperor waited and waited for sons who never came, and could not sleep at night for wondering where they were and what had become of them. The youngest son wished to go in search of his brothers, but for long the emperor refused to listen to him, lest he should lose him also. But the prince prayed so hard for leave and to make a search, and promised so often that he would be very cautious and careful, that at length the emperor gave him permission, and ordered his best horse in the stables to be saddled for him. Full of hope, the young prince started on his way, but no sooner had he left the city walls than a hare sprang out of the bushes and ran before him until they reached the mill. As before, the animal dashed through the open door, but this time he was not followed by the prince. Wiser than his brothers, the young man turned away, saying to himself, "There are good hares in the forest as any that come out of it, and when I've caught them, I can come back and look for you." For many hours he rode up and down the mountain, but saw nothing, and at last, tired of waiting, he went back to the mill, and here he found an old woman sitting, who greeted him pleasantly. "Good morning to you, little mother," he said, and the old woman answered, "Good morning, my son." "Tell me, little mother," went the prince, "where shall I find my hare?" "My son," replied the old woman, "that was no hare, but a dragon who has led many men hither, and then has eaten them all." At these words the prince's heart grew heavy, and he sighed. "Then my brothers must have come here, and have been eaten by the dragon." "You have guessed right," answered the old woman, "and I can give you no better counsel than to go home at once before the same fate overtakes you." "Will you not come out with me from this dreadful place?" said the young man. "Oh, he took me prisoner too," answered she, "and I cannot shake off his chains." "Then listen to me," cried the prince. "When the dragon comes back, ask him where he always goes when he leaves here, and what makes him so strong. And when you've coaxed the secret from him, tell me the next time I come." So the prince went home, and the old woman remained in the mill. And as soon as the dragon returned, she said to him, "Where have you been all this time? You must have traveled far." "Yes, little mother, I have traveled indeed far," he answered. Then the old woman began to flatter him and to praise his cleverness, and when she thought she had got him into a good mood, she said, "I have often wondered where you get your strength from. I do wish you would tell me. I would stoop and kiss the place out of pure love." The dragon laughed at this and answered, "In the hearthstone yonder lies the secret of my strength." Then the old woman jumped up and kissed the hearth, whereat the dragon laughed more and said, "You foolish creature, I was only jesting. It is not in the hearthstone, but in that tall tree that lies the secret of my strength." Then the old woman jumped up again and put her arms around the tree and kissed it heartily. Loudly laughed the dragon when he saw what she was doing. "Oh, fool!" he cried as soon as she could speak. "Did you really believe that my strength came from that tree?" "Where is it then?" asked the old woman rather crossly, for she did not like being made fun of. "My strength," replied the dragon, "lies far away, as far as you can never reach it. Far, far from here is a kingdom, and by its capital city is a lake. And in the lake is a dragon, and inside the dragon is a wild boar. Inside the wild boar is a pigeon, and inside the pigeon a sparrow, and inside the sparrow is my strength." When the old woman heard this, she thought it was no use flattering him any longer, for never, never could she take his strength from him. The following morning, when the dragon had left the mill, the prince came back, and the old woman told him all that the creature had said. He listened in silence, and then returned to the castle, where he put on a suit of shepherd's clothes, and taking a staff in his hand, went forth to seek the place as tender of sheep. For some time he wandered from village to village, from town to town, till he came at length to a large city in a distant kingdom, surrounded on 3 sides by a great lake, which happened to be the very lake in which a dragon lived. As was his custom, he stopped everybody whom he met in the streets, and looked likely to want a shepherd, and begged them to engage him, but they all seemed to have shepherds of their own, and else not in need any more. The prince was beginning to lose heart, when a man who had overheard his question turned round and said that he had better go and ask the emperor, as he was in search of someone to see after his flocks. "Will you take care of my sheep?" said the emperor when the young man knelt before him. "Most willing, your majesty," answered the young man, and when he listened obediently while the emperor told him what he was to do. "Outside the city walls," went the emperor, "you will find a large lake, and by its lakes lie the richest meadows in my kingdom. When you are leading out your flocks to pasture, you will run straight into these meadows, and none that give there have ever been known to come back. Take heed, therefore, my son, do not suffer your sheep to go where they will, but drive them to any spot that you think best." With a low bow, the prince thanked the emperor for his warning, and promised to do his best to keep the sheep safe. And then he left the palace and went to the marketplace, where he bought 2 greyhounds, a hawk, and a set of pipes. After that he took the sheep to the pasture. The instant the animals caught sight of the lake lying before them, they trotted off as fast as their legs would go to the green meadows lying around it. The prince did not try to stop them, but only placed his hawk on the branch of a tree, laid his pipes on the grass, and bade the greyhounds sit still. Then, rolling up his sleeves and trousers, he waded into the water, and as he did so, he called out, "Dragon, dragon, if you are not a coward, come out and fight with me." And a voice answered from the depths of the lake, "I am waiting for you, O prince." And the next minute the dragon reared himself out of the water, huge and horrible to see. The prince sprang upon him, and they grappled with each other, and fought together till the sun was high, and it was noonday, and then the dragon gasped, "O prince, let me dip my burning head once into the lake, and I will hurl you up to the top of the sky." But the prince said, "Oh ho, my good dragon, do not crow too soon. If the emperor's daughter were only here, she would kiss you on the forehead, and I would throw you up so higher still." And suddenly the dragon's hold loosened, and he fell back into the lake. As soon as it was evening, the prince washed away all signs of the fight, took his hawk upon his shoulder, and his pipes under his arm, and his greyhounds in front, and his flock followed him as he set out for the city. As they all passed through the streets, the people stared in wonder, for never had any flock returned from the lake. The next morning he rose early and led his sheep to the lake. This time, however, the emperor sent 2 men on horseback to ride behind him, with orders to watch the prince all day long. The horsemen kept the prince and his sheep in sight, without being seen themselves. As soon as they beheld the sheep running towards the meadow, they turned aside the steep hill, which overhung the lake. When the shepherd reached the place, he laid, as before, his pipes on the ground and bade the greyhounds sit beside him, while the hawk he perched on the branch of a tree. Then he rolled up his trousers and his sleeves and waded into the water, crying, "Dragon, dragon, if you are not a coward, come out and fight with me." And the dragon answered, "I am waiting for you, O prince." And the next minute he reared himself out of the water, huge and horrible to see. Again they clasped around each other so tight and fought till it was noon. When the sun was at its hottest, the dragon gasped, "O prince, let me dip my burning head once in the lake, and I will hurl you up to the top of the sky." But the prince answered, "Oh ho, my good dragon, do not crow too soon. If the emperor's daughter were only here, she could kiss me on the forehead, and I would throw you higher still." And suddenly the dragon's hold loosened, and he fell back into the lake. As soon as it was evening, the prince again collected his sheep, and playing on his pipes, he marched before them into the city. When he passed through the gates, all the people came out of their houses to stare and wonder, for never before had any flock returned from the lake. Meanwhile, the 2 horsemen had ridden quickly back and told the emperor all they had seen and heard. The emperor listened eagerly to their tale, and then called his daughter to him, and repeated it to her. "Tomorrow," he said, or when he had finished, "you shall go to the shepherd to the lake, and you shall kiss him on the forehead as he wishes." But when the princess heard these words, she burst into tears and sobbed out, "Will you send me, your only child,
to that dreaded place from which most likely I shall never come back.
Fear nothing, my little daughter. All will be well. Many shepherds have gone to the lake, and none have returned. This one has done 2 days' fought since a dragon, and escaped without a wound. I hope tomorrow he will kill the dragon altogether, and deliver this land from the monster who has slain so many of our bravest men. Scarcely had the sun begun to peep over the hills the next morning, when the princess stood by the shepherd's side, ready to go to the lake. The shepherd was brimming over with joy, but the princess only wept bitterly. "Dry your tears, I implore you," he said. "If you will just do what I ask, when the time comes, run and kiss my forehead. You have nothing to fear." Merrily the shepherd blew on his pipes as he marched at the head of his flock, only stopping every now and then to say to the weeping girl at his side, "Do not cry so, heart of gold. Trust me and fear nothing." And so they reached the lake. In an instant the sheep were scattered all over the meadows, and the prince placed his hawk on the tree and his pipes in the grass, while he bade his greyhounds lie beside him. Then he rolled up his trousers and his sleeves and waded into the water. "Dragon, dragon, if you are not a coward, come forth, and let us have one more fight together." And the dragon answered, "I am waiting for you, O prince." And the next minute he reared himself out of the water, huge and horrible to see. Swiftly he drew near the bank, and the prince swam to meet him, and they grasped round each other in the body and fought till noon. When the sun was at its hottest, the dragon cried, "Oh, dear prince, let me dip my burning head in the lake, and I will hurl you to the top of the sky." But the prince answered, "Oh, ho, my good dragon, do not crow too soon. If the emperor's daughter were only here, she could kiss my forehead, and I would throw you even higher still." Hardly had he spoken when the princess, who had been listening, ran up and kissed him on the forehead. Then the prince swung the dragon straight up into the clouds, and when he touched the earth again, he broke into 1,000 pieces. Out of the pieces there sprang a wild boar and galloped away, but the prince called his hounds to give chase, and they caught the boar and tore it to bits. Out of the pieces there sprang a hare, and in a moment the greyhounds were after it, and they caught it and killed it. And out of the hare there came a pigeon. Quickly the prince let loose his hawk, which soared straight into the air, and swooped upon the bird and brought it to his master. The prince cut open its body and found the sparrow inside, as the old woman had said. "Now," cried the prince, holding the sparrow in his hand, "now you shall tell me where I can find my brothers."
Do not hurt me," answered the sparrow, "and I will tell you with all my heart. Behind your father's castle stands a mill, and in the mill there are 3 slender twigs. Cut off those twigs and strike their roots with them, and the iron door of the cellar will open. In the cellar you will find many people, young and old, women and children, as would fill a kingdom, and among them are your brothers."
By this time twilight had fallen, so the prince washed himself in the lake, took the hawk on his shoulder, the pipes under his arm, and with the greyhounds before him and his flock behind him, marched gaily back into the city, the princess following them all, still trembling with fright. And so they passed through the streets, thronged with a wondering crowd, till they reached the castle. Unknown to anyone, the emperor had stolen out on horseback and had hidden himself on the hill, where he saw all that had happened. When all was over, the power of the dragon was broken forever, and he rode quickly back to the castle, and was ready to receive the prince with open arms and to promise him his daughter to wife. The wedding took place with great splendor, and for a whole week the town was hung with colored lamps, and tables were spread to the hall and the castle for all those that had come to eat. And when the feast was over, the prince told the emperor and the people who he really was, and that this everyone rejoiced still more. Preparations were made for the prince and princess to return to their own kingdom, for the prince was impatient to free his brothers. The first thing he did when he reached his native country was to hasten to the mill, where he found the 3 twigs as the sparrow had told him. The moment he struck the root with the iron door flew open. From the cellar the countless multitude of men and women and children streamed forth. He bade them to go one by one wherever they would, while he himself made waited by the door till his brothers passed through. How delighted they were to meet again, and to hear all that the prince had done to deliver them from their enchantment. And they went home with him, and served him all the days of their lives. And for they said that he was only, for they said that he only had proved himself brave and faithful, was fit. Yeah. For they said that he only had proved himself brave and faithful enough to be king. Let's see. How long did that one take me? The next one's 7 pages long as well. I think I'll finish reading for the night. But again, thank you everyone for coming in. And thank you, whoever it was that decided to subscribe. I will be out of town next week. I may try to do a live stream from my phone just to show people around, but that may be it. I do think that Papa Penguin is doing our Cyberpunk game tomorrow, so I'll be on his channel. But as for that, I will be gone for a week. Hopefully enjoying some colder weather than it is in Texas. So if anyone has any raid suggestions, by all means, I'm open for them. Let's see, is anyone on the same topic we are right now? Really, a lot of people write instead of reading on this one. Anyone? Anyone? Fry? Anyway, I hope everyone has a wonderful night. Those are our raid messages. I think I'm going to raid Jiva. I haven't got to raid them for a while. That's what actually type of raid. They're doing Cyberpunk, so. Have a good night, everyone.